you can't linger there, right? Like you do have to take small steps towards something. And that's, you get to know your intuition. And when you have a knowing versus a thinking, this is where you move from your mind to your soul. So thinking is in your mind, knowing is in your soul.
Welcome to Normalize the Conversation by Inspiring My Generation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicheter. Today, I'm joined by Pam Buchanan, founder of Quantum Sense, who's on a mission to help people and organizations bring soul health into everyday life. Because let's be honest, our souls could use a little self-care too. In this conversation, we talk about what it really means to live from your soul instead of your ego, how to tune back into your intuition, honor your energy, and pause long enough to remember what truly matters. So take a deep breath, slow down for a minute, and let this episode guide you back home to yourself. Pam, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited for our conversation, but before we begin, I want to check in. How are you really?
Thank you for asking. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am doing great. It's a beautiful day here in Chicago, sunny, nice weather for the summer, and I'm looking forward to speaking with your audience and talking about soul health.
I'm so excited to have you here talking about soul health with me because it's such an integral part of our productivity, of just how we feel overall and how we show up for ourselves and within our career and in our life in general. And for me, something I've really been struggling a lot with lately as someone who recently kind of graduated and had my whole life focused on this idea of one thing, right? It's all academia and it's all like keep going, and just live up to the standard of what you're supposed to be. And then all of a sudden it's like you're dropped into the world. Be productive, be engaged, figure out where you are. Don't do too much. Don't do not enough. And it's just like a whirlwind of how do I exist in this world? How do I know who I am?
Exactly. And where do you start, right? It's so overwhelming. And I say, let's take a pause, right? And the world sometimes doesn't give us permission to pause. So I think that's so important. And even if it feels uncomfortable, to just take a step back for a minute and, don't overwhelm yourself. Take it one step at a time. Because again, I think, we're all programmed to say, okay, I got to get going. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to multitask. And, it's really why can't we take that pause and one step at a time? It doesn't feel comfortable to pause, but I think we should take a step back and say, I'm going into adulthood. Who am I really? And what do I want to do? And where do I want to live? Where do I feel most comfortable? What does my environment look like? And set it with intentionality, besides saying, oh, I need to live in the Midwest because I grew up here, or, oh, I can't go to this location because I won't have any friends. Take a step back and say, okay, who am I really? And I think the real question is, who is my soul? Because we're three entities, right? We are mind, body, and soul. And people don't talk about the soul that often. And if they do, it's in maybe religious terms or a romantic sense, my soulmate. But a soul is equally a part of your being as your mind is and as your body is. So I like to say, your body, yes, it's very important to be a human being and have a body so that we can interact. It's important to take care of our body. But I think as far as health wise, we've checked that box in terms of, organ health and, going to the medical doctor and, being taken care of, right? We have all sorts of medicines and shots and, prescriptions for our body. So if I said, how are you doing? Most of us think about, oh, my body, right? Oh, it hurts or it aches or I'm really feeling good or I went to work out and lifted, 20 pounds of weight. But, and it's like a badge of honor, right? Oh, how much did you work out this week? Oh, I didn't work out at all. Oh, and then you begin to feel less than. when you shouldn't feel less than. You know your body the best, but it's more than your body. It's also your soul. And when we look at our soul, it's invisible, right? We can't see it and touch it and feel it like we can our body. So I think it's important that we get to feel and touch our soul so that someone asks, how are you doing? We think about our soul health, not just our physical health, our body's health, or even our mental health, our mind's health, right? So that's very important. But we're all three. And I just think that society has not let us really go deep into that soul's knowing. I feel that religion almost took that away from us, back thousands of years ago. Now, think about this way. If I, let's say, had a heart issue or a stomach issue, I go to the doctor, right? Call your doctor, go in and see your doctor. What if he said, oh, I need to take care of your heart or your stomach? Would you take that organ out of your body and say, oh, I'll be back next week and pick it up? No. Then why do we give our soul over to a religion, right? And I'm not saying religion isn't important in some people's life, but it's not about it. They don't own the soul, just like your doctor, your medical doctor doesn't own your organs, if that makes sense at all. So let's start to own our soul as part of our being, as part of a very important part of our being, and get to know it. And each one is individual. I'm an identical twin. So I feel like I've been on this soul journey since birth because people automatically would say, oh, you look physically alike somebody. You must be alike. And I always thought, no, we're different. Just because our bodies look alike doesn't mean we're the same being. We're different. And what makes us different truly is our soul, because our bodies are identical. You 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 could have her on the podcast and think it was me, right? So let's get beyond and look at a person's soul, not just what their physical being is presenting. And so I talk to people about, are you presenting soul first versus, even in business, sometimes ego first, or even body first? Let's present with our soul first. And what is that? That's an energetic feeling. We all have an aura of energy around us. So what is that aura saying? And what are you presenting to the world? And we want our soul's essence, which is all about the love that we carry within ourselves. And many of us have hidden that away for years, but it's time to put that first. So let's put love first, let's put our soul first, and let's start thriving and creating a new paradigm to live.
Putting love first, putting who you are, showing up as you are. There's so much pressure to look a certain way and perform a certain way. I was just talking about this with my therapist yesterday. I was like, right now I'm at a point where there's so much pressure to figure out how to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Who I am is not often what people expect from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people will say, well, you don't look like someone who struggles. You don't seem like someone who would do public speaking or have a podcast. You don't seem this, you don't seem that. And it's all based on this external thing of what they see on the
Mm-hmm.
outside. And it's very frustrating because then I go online and social media is a brand. So
Mm-hmm.
how do I show up as that brand version without losing who I am and taking away from people actually seeing me and the heart of who I am, not just the curated image that gets people to follow?
Exactly. And that's hard. That's a hard line to walk, right? But really, if you put your soul first, it all comes together. So who are you at your essence? Beside being, okay, you and I are female, right? We're a certain age. You have brown hair, I have blonde hair. We describe ourselves in physical terms, right? But we're more than that. So when I meet someone, I literally see their soul. I don't first see, oh, you're female, male, what culture you're from. I don't see that. I automatically see a person's soul and their energy being. So if the world would lead like that, wouldn't that solve a majority of our problems? Because when you look at a person's soul, you really are, we're all equal because our all of our souls are based out of a love, but they've again just been hidden and put down, especially for women and minorities, right? We've been pushed aside, and let's start to stand up and show the world who we truly are and that we can lead with softness, with femininity. And again, that's not about being male or female, but let's start leading with femininity, softness, soul health, right? Soulness, and I think we would be in a different place if we all led like that first, because so many of us have been taught, oh, we need to lead with our bodies first. So what does alignment look like, right? And again, alignment is about being in line with our energetic centers and our nervous system. So again, I'm not saying don't take care of your physical body health, because that is important, obviously, but our society has checked that box and we know where to go. Mental health now, you're having a podcast on mental health. Mental health is front and center. It's very important. We now have mental health days. We can talk about going to our therapist, taking medication to help us function. And that is very, very important. But I want to add the soul portion into the conversation so that we have podcasts all about our souls, our souls being, because that really is our unique fingerprint or blueprint, right? It really does make us unique. And again, I use that example of being an identical twin because you talk about being compared to somebody else, and because you look like somebody, you came from the same family, you're automatically looked at like, oh, you're one and the same. I had a corporate career. She got married. I mean, she's more traditional. I'm more innovative. So we are different. Our souls had different purposes in life to fulfill. And so it's a struggle, though, because I think society, again, can put us in a category, just like back in the day, women, oh, all your purpose is to birth a child or to get married and to have a family, and after that we push you aside. And now we're into the hormone replacement therapy, and women in their 40s and 50s, don't push us aside. We want the same energy that we had in our 20s and 30s, so we're going to stand up and rally for that, right? Our bodies do need to be strong for that. So I think it's just the beginning of a new paradigm, and you're helping co-create that. I want to be a part of that conversation. So let's all be a part of a conversation of how we show up, right? Individually, how are we going to show up? And really ground yourself in that belief. So I talk about grounding, elevating, evolving. So you ground yourself in your senses. And your sensory being, what is that? It's your nervous system reacting to your environment. Your environment is so, so important. And I'm not talking about a superficial environment. I'm talking about moment by moment, your senses are identifying, oh, I feel happy because look at the sun, or look at the bright blue color that I love, or look at the smells of the lavender and, the oranges around me. So create that environment so your nervous system can thrive. It's as simple as that, right? Taking a look at where you're sitting, wow, what is one thing I could change to put into my environment that would help uplift me and ground me into my true being? So we start with the grounding, and most people miss that step. They just want to elevate and evolve, just like what you were saying. Okay, I graduated, I've got to go, 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 figure out this real world. And yet I'm like, okay, there's so many choices. Which direction do I go?
Yeah, exactly. And back to what you were saying before, no one, not we don't usually have the conversation that you have permission to rest and reset for a moment, at least a moment to figure out who you are and where you belong, right? And
Abs-
really ground yourself in the present moment because up until this point, at least for me, can't speak on every college student's experience, but for me, my life was so future oriented to get to that point of graduation. Just get to that next exam, pass the exam, finish that paper, get to graduation. There was no real moments where I was living in the present moment. So
Yep.
now all of a sudden, my life isn't completely future oriented to an end date of graduating.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything around you, figure it out. And it feels
Yep.
like, for me at least, I have to figure it out all on my own in an instant. No one's
Yeah.
talking about grounding yourself back into the present moment and figuring out the essence of who you are and how you want to show up in the world.
Absolutely. And you can't linger there, right? Like you do have to take small steps towards something, and that's you get to know your intuition. And when you have a knowing versus a thinking, this is where you move from your mind to your soul. So thinking is in your mind, knowing is in your soul. And all of us have that soul knowing. We just cover it up with our thinking and our analytics and, oh, would that look good? And, oh, 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 3, it equals 2. So what should I do here? Take yourself out of the mind. I have a lot of friends that overanalyze, 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 and it's only hurting themselves.
It's so hard when you grow up in this mindset of having to think everything through a million steps ahead and be part of this image of what you're supposed to look like and supposed to
Yep.
do. It's all these shoulds. And you never get a chance to explore who you are and what that means to you. It's like, how do I make the next right decision? And everything feels like it has to be a big permanent decision instead of what feels right for me in this moment. Let me listen to myself and then decide.
And it's because we were programmed in society's conditions, right? And whether that was, a family unit, a cultural unit, a country, religion, we were all programmed to a certain extent to say, well, this is the right way to do it. This is the right path to go down. And your feeling inside, if you pause for a minute, is like, oh no, that's not the path I want to go down. But that's what I've been taught or coached or society has said. But wait a minute, that's not who my soul's essence is. And I want to show up with my soul. And once you do that, the world will respond, and you will feel healthier and brighter and energetic because you're truly living your own unique path. And it takes a lot of courage, right? It takes courage. So you have to give yourself a lot of pats on the back.
It
And
does take a
I,
lot of
I
courage.
did it, or I made it through the day, or I made it through the hour. I did it. And I'm gonna get to know my soul because that is really truly what we're all brought here to do is give ourselves uniquely to the world. And each one of us has unique talents that can contribute. Being grateful is also a good grounding step. So be in gratitude in terms of, oh, wow, what can I look up and say I'm grateful for? I have a roof over my head. I have a great mom, or I have a best friend. I have food to eat. If you do that on a continual basis, whether it is a nightly ritual or whether it's an hourly, you know, pause and reset. I think that's really, really important to get yourself back to the present moment and back to your again, I keep repeating myself, I feel. Hopefully at the end of it, I want soul, as I said, to be a part of the conversation, right? And that it's just a part of our normal everyday.
Yeah. Back to what you were saying too about how much courage it takes when we're conditioned to believe we have to take these steps in order. of these milestones to be accepted by society, to say, you know what, I'm going to pause, I'm going to lead with my heart and who I am, not with these expectations of what society taught me to do. And showing up in that way each and every day, even through the hardships that make you kind of question, is this the right path? Is very difficult. And a lot of people feel afraid to, or is this right? No one else is doing it this way. And I know for me, that's been a big thing. I did not take a traditional route as most people have. So a lot of my friends and I are in very different places. And they're showing up in, I'm so happy for them. They have jobs that they really wanted and they went that route. And a lot of them are burning out trying to keep up with society's expectations of it's a 40-hour week, but really that means 60 hours or whatever it is, and never giving themselves a chance to breathe. Versus I went more activism, nonprofit, non-traditional route. And our days look very different. And on the days where maybe something happens externally in the world that prevents certain things from moving forward and everything goes on pause, it takes a lot of courage to say, I'm not going to give up this value system. I'm not going to give up this leadership and these goals just to switch back and pivot to what's expected of me when things are getting tough. And it's really hard to do that when you can't get back into that present moment and take a deep breath and say, I know that this feels right for me, and checking in with myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is hard. It's very, very difficult. So again, trying to give yourself that reassurance. I know this is hard, but I know at the end of it, I will be a much more fulfilled individual. In my career, I had a 40-year corporate career, which was amazing, but it was also tough. I started back in the 80s when there weren't a lot of women, in a corporate career. And I got promoted. I was blessed to, have promotions, and I got promoted to an outside sales territory. And my body and my mental state was just not doing well. And so I said, I can't do this anymore. One day I just woke up and I said, I can't do it. And so I called my boss and I said, I have to resign. I can't do this. Now, here I am. I have no other job, thought about it. I just knew that my body and mind couldn't continue forward. And I was probably about 27. And I talked to my dad. I said, yeah, I just quit my job. He goes, oh, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. You don't quit a job. Again, back in his day, that's not what you did, even if you didn't like the job. And I said, well, Dad, I just did. And I'm not calling you for permission. I'm calling to inform you that this is what I did. Now, my dad's a kind individual. I'm not scared of my dad. So I was able to have that conversation. And then my boss said, well, I'm not going to accept your resignation, and I'm going to give you a week. Take a week off. Think about it, but I'm not going to accept your resignation. Again, feeling blessed because they liked my work. They liked myself being a part of the team, and that felt good, right? And so you're like, oh, holy crap, am I supposed to be doing this? But I knew that at the end of the day, my knowing kicked in, and I knew I had to do it despite society, parents, my boss, everyone's saying that's not what you want to do. Please don't do it. And I said, I've got to do it. So, and that's very, very scary, but I look back and I think, wow, that was pretty courageous. Where did I get that courage from? But I think, again, it was because I lived this soul-driven life unknowingly, because I was an identical twin, knowing that, my soul was different and I needed to carve out a different path. Now, I ended up, my company accepted my resignation a week later. And then they called me the next week and said, we have another job. Would you like to interview for that position? And that fit my personality more. And I said, sure. And I love that job. And I was in it for almost 20 years.
Wow.
So it just tells you if you have the courage to say no to something that isn't meant for you, despite the whole world saying, you got to keep that job. That's a really good job. And you don't have any money coming in. If you quit your job, what are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And I said no. And look at another opportunity opened up that was more money and really fit my personality, my skill set in a better way. So if I could use that example of when I was 27 years old and did that, and again, I didn't overthink it, because if I had overthought it, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So you really have to go with your gut, despite, again, your best friend, your parents, your sibling, whoever is saying, no, 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 no. You're going to say, I know me better and I know it will all work out. Thank you. Bye bye.
So hard to do that, to not listen to those outside voices, but that's amazing to hear, especially at 27. That's the age I am now. Hearing that it's okay to say no to what's traditional and expected and the shoulds and what everyone tells you should do, and figure out who you are and go for that. It's not a conversation we get to have a lot.
No, it's not. And you have to be grounded to really dig in when people are pulling you, like, oh, come on, let's keep going, let's keep going. You have to be, no, no, no. It's almost like you have to, I don't know, really dig your heels in, as they say, right?
Yeah.
And there's advantages to being stubborn sometimes.
Yeah, there are advantages once we get to that place of believing in ourselves and trusting ourselves, because
Ab-
where, and for me, when I'm like convincing myself that I'm going to take this route and I'm going to go up against, my parents are amazing, so supportive. If you guys are listening, you're probably not, but if you are, I love you guys. Thank you. Um, but a lot of times I think that I'm being advocating for myself, but I'm also, and I'm being stubborn in a good way, yet I'm also looking for that permission from them. So I'm going at it a lot of times in that fighting with them for them to say, okay, that's right, you should do that route. And I think being stubborn when you get to that place of, this is what I want and I'm not looking for permission. I'm going to tell people who I am. I'm going to show up as I am. That must be the most amazing thing in the world, because right now I'm stubborn in the like, fight with you until you agree with me and validate me so then I can continue doing it.
and
We're
you don't
going.
right? You really don't need that validation as an adult child, right? And that's what I guess I told my dad, in his world, being without a job wasn't a good thing, and I had to say, I'm not asking for your permission. I'm doing this. And he's like, oh, okay, you know, okay. So, try that, and you will feel amazing, really. I mean, it's empowering. And the one thing I think that younger people need to practice is just voicing, what feels good to them. And the more you do it, just like public speaking, right? The more you do it, the more comfortable you get with that, and then you get to know yourself at a deeper level. So, really, really, ask yourself, what are my values? Who do I like to hang out with? Am I going with the crowd just because that's the cool thing to do? But yet, I don't like to go to clubs and bars, but everyone's doing it. Maybe I'd rather just go to a coffee shop with some friends. And you really, again, have to have that courage and that deep down conviction. And it's a soul's journey. It's a soul's journey. So say, I'm doing that for my soul right now. And that feels pretty darn good. Just like you would go to the, health club to exercise for those muscles, that feels pretty good after working out those muscles. What are you doing to work out your soul?
It's so funny that we're having this conversation today, because yesterday I sat down and grabbed a piece of paper and I was really frustrated because I love what I do. Yet my friends were teasing me about my schedule being so different than theirs, and I don't understand what a 9 to 5 is. So I had kind of those voices in my head and then pressure from other people. And I was like, do I really enjoy what I'm doing? Why am I feeling so insecure right now? So I took a piece of paper and I wrote down everything that I've accomplished and why it was important to me. And I realized that the things that weren't very important to me were all the things I was doing because people were telling me I should be doing it. And
Hmm.
all the things that were important for me was when I was doing my actual work, when I was focused on my value of feeling connected to people, not, to your point, not going out. I mean, I love to go out and grab drinks with my friends, absolutely. Do I want to do that all the time, or would I rather sometimes we sit at a coffee shop and get work done together and just bond over things that we're learning and doing in the world?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
finding what my values are and how I'm living by them makes me feel like me instead of a curated image.
Absolutely. And people will respond to that because they can sense that energy from you. We all have a sensory system. We're all born with that. And we all really can kind of you can feel a vibe in a room, right? You can get a vibe from a person, but we kind of ignore that. Let's start paying attention to that, right? Gosh, I feel good when I'm in this person's presence, or, oh, I don't feel very good. Why do I hang out with this person if I'm always tense? So start noticing again what your environment is, what is surrounding you, whether that's people, plants, buildings, noises, smells, right? I mean, start noticing all that and then start putting in the positive that helps you elevate, right? You don't want to stay down, a lower vibration. You want to elevate. You can't be positive and negative at the same time. We can fluctuate between those two, give it even in an hour, right? We can't, be survival mode and thrive mode. Again, we fluctuate between both. We can't lead by ego and lead by soul. So check in with yourself, and I check in with myself on an hourly basis. That's one of the grounded practices. Check in on yourself, lift your head up, look around, you know, ask yourself, how was this conversation? Did I lead with negativity or fear? Or did I lead with positivity and love? There are only two emotions, love and fear. Again, it's so simple. So ask yourself, was I in fear mode when I made that decision, or was I in love mode? And when I say fear and love, fear could be anger, hate, all those other emotions below it. Love is positivity, joy, all those positive emotions. But I use fear and love. So stop and ask yourself, was this a joyful conversation, uplifting conversation? Yes, it was. I want more of those. How can I get more of those into my daily practice?
Like that. Love and fear.
Yeah, love and fear. It really, and again, you can't be in both modes at the same time. So remember that. So it can only be, okay, this interaction, let's say you came home, you were tired and your nervous system was shot, and you start yelling at the kids, or, just, yeah, yeah, that's fear coming at it. Okay, do you need time to reset before you engage in your community? Let's say after a stressful situation, you may, right? And that's okay. Go, take some deep breaths, but don't come in and start interacting out of fear when you need to reset your nervous system. So I like to say there's certain things that let's say you go home for Christmas and your family dynamic makes you nervous and anxious, and by the end of a day or 2 days you're like, oh, I'm just completely spent. If you come back to the real world, let's say, go back to your job, you may be like, rah, rah, rah. Why? Because you had a tense situation. You need to calm yourself down and reset, right? Reset. So it's okay to reset. And what makes your nervous system anxious may not make my nervous system anxious. Example, I've never liked grocery stores. They're overwhelming, the scents, the smells, the lights, everything. I have a friend. She goes, "Hey, I need to go to the grocery store. Want to come?" I'm like, "No." She goes, "Really?" I said, "No, because if I go to the grocery store with you, it's going to take me 2 days to reset because I'll be so overwhelmed and overstimulated and anxious and blah, blah, blah." She goes, "Really? I love going to the grocery store. It invigorates me." So, see, we were honest with each other. And this is a true example. And it's like, oh, okay, you love the grocery store. Maybe 99 out of 100 people could go to the grocery store and not need to be reset. But I, now knowing myself, says, I'm not just going to go to the grocery store. You know where it is. Go down the street, turn right. There's the store. Grab what you need, and I'll be right here waiting for you.
It's so funny that you use that example because I was just talking about this with one of my friends. She loves to go to the grocery store, loves to grocery shop.
Mm-hmm.
I order my stuff for pickup
Mm-hmm.
because I get overwhelmed with all the options and then I end up buying everything I shouldn't buy. And I'm like, I ended up with nothing that I needed. There is no food for this week. I got
Exactly.
overwhelmed so
Exactly.
quickly.
And see,
Thank you for getting me.
yeah, you are taking care of yourself. And that is great. And but see, my friend didn't put me down. She
Yeah,
said, "Just amazing. I never knew that about you."
I love that.
I guess I never articulated it, right? Like if someone in, let's say, even the past 10 years had said, "Let's go to the grocery store," but okay, we'll go. Because again, that's a normal thing to do. It's not like they're asking me to go run a mile when I haven't worked out in 2 years, right? So they're like, "We don't understand. Why wouldn't you want to go to the grocery store?" But knowing yourself, knowing your environments that you thrive in versus survive in. And if you're in a surviving environment, to go back into a thriving mode, you've got to reset. And that's your nervous system, that's your sensory system. You've got to reset. So, again, back to, what they've said for 50 or so years: put on candles, take a bubble bath, do something that, again, relaxes your nervous system. And only you can say what that is.
Yeah, it's so important. Okay, so now we got grounding and then we go into elevating and then evolve.
Mhm.
Okay.
So elevating is getting to know your energetic being and living out of your energy versus your physical being. Because some people say, "Oh, physical energy, that's the one and the same." And it's not. Again, it's more related to that nervous system and the aura that you naturally put out. So if you know how some people, let's say you broke up with, a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and you're like, ugh, and you're in a doom and gloom and your heart's closed off. Well, people feel that, right? That's your energy radiating, because you're closed off. You had a fear-based moment. So again, you can only elevate when you're more in the love-based environments, situations that you put yourself in. If you have a 90-10, 90 being survival fear versus 10, you're not going to be happy with your life.
Yeah.
You're going to be living, but are you going to be thriving and really enjoying it? No, you're not. So tap into that energy where it lights you up. And I'm not talking about energy where you could run 100 miles, right? I'm talking about the energy that's within you, the brightness. Just vision yourself as this bright light, right? Is the bright light on or is it dimmed?
Yeah.
Where's my energy? Like visualize that, because the energy part is taking the invisible and making it visible to yourself, right? And that's why we haven't, as a society, focused on our soul, on our energetic being, because you can't physically see that, right? So when I say, well, yes, I'm an identical twin, people, again, 99% of the people would say, "Oh, you're exactly alike." No, we're not. You can't see our soul. Our souls are different. So that's why it's so important to really look at a person's soul. Because just because, let's say you're, a certain age, you're a certain, ethnic group, you're a certain, gender, doesn't mean you're like the next person that's in that exact same category, right? Let's stop categorizing people based on gender and culture and everything. Let's start categorizing people based on, are they living out of love or fear? Negativity, positivity. Let's create a new paradigm where we all thrive.
It makes such a difference.
It makes such a difference. So let's look at our energy. Let's look at this bright bubble around us. Are we glowing or is it dim? And only you can tell yourself that, right? So let's get to know, like frequencies, right? Like we're all frequencies. We're all little particles that, are we living, in a 3D heavier dimension? Or are we living in a 5D lighter dimension? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be on the side of, oh my God, the world's changing and oh my God, it's horrible and blah, 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 blah. Well, where's that going to lead you? That's going to stick you in the same place and be, like they say, the grumpy old man, right? You don't want to be the grumpy old man. You want to be the thriving, joyful female out there that is just radiating the joy. And I truly think that, the femininity can lead that way. So elevate your energy. Elevate your energy. And how do you do that? First, visualize yourself as an energetic bubble, if you will.
Yeah. It's, oh, I love the way you're explaining this. I'm trying to process and take it all in. It's so true. There's some people who feel like sunshine in human form, and that it's their energy, the light that they have within them, bringing it out, and it makes such a difference.
It makes such a
Yeah.
difference. Whether it's the Starbucks barista, whether it's, your friends, but you can tell when, a person has charisma or, you were just drawn to that person or drawn to that event. Why was that? It was their energy. You didn't see their physical being. You were attracted to the energy in that room. And here's also what's so important. The positive molecule is much lighter than the negative molecule. Scientific fact. So that's why the negativity, the survival, it pulls heavy. That's why we all need to be pulling up in a group, a collective. You and I, and that's why they say, okay, let's say you're in a bad relationship, you're in a corporation that beats you down and you stay there for years. Guess what happens? You get pulled down in it. You don't, they start to dim the light and you can't afford to stay in that situation. You truly cannot afford to stay in that situation. Whether that's physically, monetarily, you cannot afford. So take yourself out of that situation.
Yeah, you should never have to dim your light.
You should never have to dim your light. And so it old adage of a sales adage, because I was in sales, you take your positive salesperson, your top producing salesperson, you put them with your lowest producing salesperson. Now, the philosophy is, oh, that top producer will bring up the lower producer. Guess what happens?
Brings them down.
Brings them down. That's how heavy the negative molecule is. I think it's like a 9-to-1 ratio. So it takes like 9 positives to outweigh the 1 negative. And think about it. Let's say that someone says, oh my God, that was a horrible performance. You could have done better, blah, 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 blah. One person says it, and then 10 people say, oh, you were terrific. Blah, blah, blah. What do you hold on to?
The criticism, the down, the
Mm-hmm.
negative.
And that's where you have to pause, reset, say, that's fine, one criticism, but look at all these other people that really enjoyed my presentation. How could I have done better? You can always improve, if you will, but that's up to you, right? You know yourself. So you're your own worst inner critic. I mean, at least I am. You beat yourself up and, I could have done that. And people, could tell you a million times over, oh, no, it was great. You're like, try to tap into, the positivity and it's really hard work, really, really hard work. And that's why the gratitude practice is so important, to stop and say, my God, I got a Starbucks latte today. I had an amazing salad. Whatever you need to do to create that positivity. So let's say that you had a negative encounter. You should immediately go into that gratitude moment so that you don't stay with that negative, because our minds are wired for, again, survival mode, to think of the fear and the predators that are coming after us. But guess what? I think we're out of survival mode. I think we're into the new paradigm of thriving, because you and I don't have to go and compete for food. We don't have to go out and today we're going to find, the critter out there that, the hunters and the gatherers had to do, right? There's only one buffalo out there, and there's 100 of us trying to get the buffalo. No, those days are gone. Those days did exist, I'm sure, right? But our minds need to rewire, and we need to be responsible for rewiring that.
Yes, we do.
We got plentiful. We need to live in abundance, not scarcity. That's, again, positive, negative, abundance, scarcity. Which are you living in? And if you live in abundance, like, I know I'm going to win this deal, again, positivity, again and again and again, you do need to reinforce it. I'm not talking about false positivity. I'm not talking about reevaluating ourselves, how we could be better. Because, again, we're all human, right? We make mistakes, but acknowledge that. Like, if you hurt someone's feelings, say, oh my God, I did not mean it that way. I'm so sorry. I hear you. I'll do better next time. I mean, we all have to do that, right? Again, we're learning how to interact. So, but try to frame it. How do you frame your groundedness? How do you frame your elevatedness? Because we all want to elevate and be better, right?
Yes, we do.
Evolve into your soul being, your soul's essence.
I always say to my friends who feel confused, or to my younger cousins, like, what do I do? How do I figure it out? I say, just own who you are and lead with your heart. It's all you have to do.
Yeah.
You can own who you are and lead with your heart, lead with who you are. It makes all the difference.
Yeah, out of kindness, right? And lead with kindness, and lead, again, soul. Lead with your soul, because that is truly part of our being. Even if we can't see it, it's part of our being.
Pam, you've been absolutely amazing today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
As
you.
we are wrapping up, can you tell people how they can learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, I have a website. It's thequantumsense.com. So come and take a look at my website and my programs and articles and books I read, and you can learn all about the process that I spoke about here. So I'm excited to take everyone on this soul journey. And, please reach out anytime. I'm happy to have a conversation.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation, and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.